This guy right here, his name is Mark Dara. He worked at Bioware, one of the biggest gaming companies like ever to exist, right? From 1997 all the way up to 2021. He worked on games such as Baldur's Gate 2, Mass Effect, Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, and then unfortunately his last few years of working there, he worked on Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem, two absolute massive flops. But he came out with a video a few days ago now called your $70 doesn't buy you cruelty. And as you can see, it has been met with a lot of negative reception about certain things that he has said in this video. So I really want to watch it. And as someone who's inspiring to be a game dev themselves, I'm going to uni to study game development, I want to hear what he has to say about this whole entire stuff, because the main conception when it comes to recency on the internet is that whenever a bad game comes out, a lot of people will put their criticism towards the game developers. And I think, me personally, I think that that is fair. I think that if a shit game comes out, you have every right to be mad about that shit game. Now, should you threaten people? No. But you still should be able to voice your opinion on how bad that game is and the fact that the devs need to do better. But did
you read the title? Did it say something like your $70 doesn't buy you cruelty?
No.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. The fact that you bought a game that you didn't like doesn't give you the right to be cruel or unkind to the people that developed that game.
But it does give you the right to criticize them. And if you say to them, the game you made is shit, you have every right to say the game you made is shit.
Now I'm going to be clear about something. I'm not saying that you have to like the thing you bought. I'm not saying even that you aren't allowed to complain about the thing you bought. You can have whatever opinion that you feel like towards a game. Even if that opinion is stupid and wrong, you are entitled to that opinion. And to some degree, you're entitled to express that opinion to the corporation, to the video game studio that created this game that you bought.
He's got a lazy eye as well. I just realized this might throw me off.
70 of your own dollars for this game, and it disappointed you.
Yes.
And you're angry about that. That is fine. You are entitled to be angry about it.
Okay.
And you're entitled to express that anger in certain channels. If you are mad at that Ubisoft game,
then what is he going on about at the start?
Be mad at Ubisoft. Express your anger to Ubisoft or to the studio that made the game. But you cross a line when you start being cruel about it. So why am I saying you don't get?
What do you mean by cruel, though? Like what? Let's just keep listening. Because I'm very curious.
Because you spent $70. Let's walk through it. Okay. One, you shouldn't be cruel at all. What are you doing? It's a video game. You don't need to go out of your way to cause harm to other people because of a video game that you don't like. Again, I'm not saying you're not allowed to be angry about it. I'm not saying you don't get to express your dissatisfaction with the content of the game.
The funny thing with that, wait, I'll just keep watching because I do have opinions about this. But
when you climb into someone's personal social media and start actively attacking that person, when you celebrate layoffs at a studio because the game that you don't like didn't do that well,
let's be honest, when it comes to people climbing in like the personal social media of these developers, a lot of these developers these days are ones who have been voicing their opinions first on social media about how much they hate gamers. We have seen it many times throughout the last couple years where so many developers of certain companies, one of the great recent examples being Avowed with Matt Hansen, the art director, talking about how much they hate gamers, being racist towards white people online, saying that, how dare you like sexy characters in games and all that kind of stuff. And these are developers coming out and voicing these opinions. So if a developer comes out and voices those and be aggressive towards gamers, hates on gamers, then what? We're not allowed to say anything back to them. We're not allowed to celebrate or be happy when they get laid off because, the company has turned to shit.
You're crossing a line into being cruel. And fundamentally, you should have more grace for other human beings.
Well,
but
if they don't have grace for you, why should you have grace for them? You know what I mean? It's just like, it's like if this developer online on Twitter is talking shit about gamers, then why the fuck should I care about what I say to them?
I'm not buying that. Let's go on to point 2. You don't know what caused the results that you don't like. Let's go through an example. Let's say that you don't like the line delivery on a piece of dialogue. Is that the fault of the voice actor? It might be, but it could be a lot of other things too. It might be the fault of the person who was directing that voice actor. Maybe they were given very specific instructions to deliver the line in this particular way. Maybe the writer who wrote that line wanted it delivered in this particular way, and the stage direction specified this particular line delivery. Maybe the recording equipment at the voice studio went down, and the only take they managed to get was this first one that was done just to set the tone, and they were just kind of out.
It just seems to me like he's trying to, like, you know, avoid criticism and like redirect criticism and say, oh no, it's not me, no, it's that person, and then that person goes, no, it's not me, it's that person. It's like, just take the blame. It's just like, yeah, sometimes we don't know who to blame, but you know what, if a line in a video game is shit, someone's gonna take blame for it. What, and everyone's just gonna keep redirecting, pointing to someone?
Out of time and stuck with it. So if you go and you start attacking the voice actor for a line delivery you don't like, it might not be them at all. It might be something else. Indeed, it might not be the line delivery at all.
It's not anyone. It was the ghost.
Maybe the problem was the writing. So should you go attack the writer? Well, no.
Well, we shouldn't directly attack them, but I can criticize them and tell them, yeah, well, yeah, your writing is shit. It's the exact same with Dragon Age of Valgard. You know what? The writing in that was shit, so what did we do? We blamed the writers. Now, should they have been threatened, or I don't know if they got doxxed, but if they were, you know, should they get doxxed? No. But they should still be told, hey, what you did a shit job.
Because why was the line written in this way? Was it written?
See how he just keeps on, like, it's like every single time, it's just like, oh, so we blame this person. Okay, so it's that person's fault.
Because the writer had a specific thing they were trying to say? Maybe it was,
and maybe that specific thing that they were trying to say was shit, so it's still the writer's fault.
In this way, because there was incredibly tight time pressures due to other externalities on their time. Maybe the direction of the game changed radically 3 months ago, and they had to rewrite this entire.
Okay, so because Dragon Age of Valgard took like how many years? So, you know, the amount of years that they had to develop that. So, and the writing, so they had like what? How many years did Dragon Age of Valgard take to develop? Dragon Age of Valgard started development in 2015. So they had, what, 9 years? Because it came out in October last year. 9 years of development. Oh, so we're going to blame the 9 years of development. You know, that's what we're going to blame. They had a very tight schedule on that development.
Character in just 3 months. And you're just getting the first draft of that writing. Maybe the lead writer wanted this character to be in a specific way, and it constrained what the writer was able to do while they were writing this character. Maybe the creative director on the project had specific goals that they had in mind, and they were pushing the writing in a particular way, or restricting how much leeway the writers had in order to express their vision on what the game was able to do or be. Maybe the executive producer, all of these people reporting up into the executive producer, decided that this game...
Why can't it be a collective then? It's a collective fault. It's everyone's fault. Like what, Valgard, we're just gonna blame it on one fucking dude? It's the writer's fault, it's the game director's fault, it's the executive, it's probably all their fault. It's all their fault. It's all their fault, that shit. And I'm using Dragon Age of Valgard as a great example, because that is like one of the games that has been heavily criticized recently, you know, for its like, you know, it's low, it just undersold and didn't do so well with, like, you know, the player base, and the player base dropped off so much, and a lot of the people who are massive fans of Dragon Age didn't like that, and the writing was some of the worst things I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Be different in tone and was pushing the game direction in a different way. Or maybe the leadership of this project changed 6 times and the direction changed 6 times, and you're getting...
And also he's making it out like, you know, the people who play games are meant to, like, you know, actually feel sorry for this. Like, players don't care. Okay, leadership changed 6 times. Why should a player care? Why is it that the video game industry is the only industry in the world where where people try to make so many excuses about why something is shit? It's the only industry in the fucking world where this happens. Every other industry, whenever a movie comes out and that movie is terrible, the acting is terrible, the writing is terrible, direction is terrible, we blame everyone. And they just go, yep, movie was shit, whatever. But all of a sudden in the gaming industry, a game like Valguard comes out, it's shit, and all of a sudden we try to make 10 million excuses for it. Just take accountability. Like, it's like he doesn't want to take accountability for this. You don't know who's to blame. I don't give a shit. Oh, big shit. Leadership changed fucking 6 times. The movie was still bad. It's like the Justice League movie, you know, that came out when Zack Snyder was he was director and then he wasn't. Everyone was just like, yeah, Zack Snyder may have gotten removed from, you know, he stopped directing the movie because of, like, you know, personal tragedy. Movie's still shit though. Movie was still bad. We don't give a like, yeah, sad that something bad happened to him, but movie's still shit.
Of writing from each of these different directions, and there was never adequate time to step back and rewrite it.
So why is that my problem? As a consumer, that's not my problem.
Maybe
that's not a consumer's problem. They shouldn't go, oh, the game's terrible, but they were on such time constraints, and you know, they just it was so hard for the developers because leadership changed 6 times.
CEO of the entire company really wanted his nephew to be hired as a script consultant. And this guy with literally 0 experience was coming in and
always blame the CEOs. Now, I'm not going to say that sometimes it ain't the CEO's fault, but it's always these developers. They always want to blame someone above them. It's like, it wasn't me, it was my manager.
Pushing for mandatory changes to the project.
Just like how DEI was pushed in video games. So what you're saying is that because these companies were trying to push diversity, equity, integrity into games, so we can blame DEI?
Realistic are all the things I just said? Some of them are incredibly realistic. Some of them not so realistic, but I've seen things that look an awful lot like all of the things I just said. So when you decided to personally attack that one specific person on social media, how certain are you that it was their fault?
Well, a lot of the times, like I said earlier as well, is that these developers, they're giving out their opinions online. There have been so many devs over the last couple of years where they have voiced their opinions about how much they hate gamers, and it's just like, gamers only hate this game because, you know, they're sexist, because they just don't have a character that they can't wank off to and they can't jerk off to in this game. Okay, when a developer comes out and attacks a player base, what, you expect the player base to just sit there and take it? No, of course not.
That they are responsible for that thing that you don't like. And I'm going to tell you right now, you shouldn't be certain, because you don't know exactly what was going on within the project. You don't know the exact circumstances that resulted in that thing you didn't like.
And they don't care either. It doesn't. The consumer should never care about the way something is made. The only thing they should worry about is if it's good or not.
Even people who were on the project aren't always going to be absolutely certain on who is responsible for something being exactly a particular way. These projects have hundreds of people on them.
And that obviously that's a problem with collaboration then. Because these people should know what's going on in the game.
It moves around between multiple people. Unless I am the person who is actually responsible for something being a certain way, that chain of custody isn't always going to be super obvious to me. And all of this isn't to say that you aren't allowed to have your own opinions, to not like the things you don't like. It's specifically to point out that you being angry at a specific person, you attacking a specific person.
Well, just remember, like I said, the only time specific people get attacked is when they make themselves known.
Is often misdirected. If you feel like you're just not getting the satisfaction from yelling at the corporate Twitter channel or yelling at the studio directly. If you feel like you need to focus it down onto an actual human being, I mean, that's really sad. I'm sorry. That's very sad. And hopefully you can grow beyond that. But I will give you a couple of outlets. If you need to complain at a human being, I'm going to say you don't get to go lower than the first person in the credits. You can go higher than that, but no lower than that. The first person in the credits.
Okay, so we're not allowed to blame specific people. So if the game is really good, right? But the sound design is shit, and that person who made, and the people who made the sound design were like halfway down the credits, we can't blame them because the sound design shit. We can't say, hey, you guys that made the sound design did a shit job.
Is the person who was, theoretically at least, in charge of the project. They are the person where at least some of the responsibility is going to lie. Now, did they have full control over what was going on in the project? No, because you could...
Then what's your point? You just said they don't have full control of the project, but we're going to blame them.
Still have the CEO of the company forcing them to
once
use
again,
his
blame
stupid
the, always
nephew
blame
as
the
a
CEO.
script consultant.
Because
But
it's the
at the
easiest,
very
easy
least,
thing to do.
They were in charge of the project for a somewhat significant percentage of the time. So if you are mad about Anthem and we look at the credits, no shit, that's me. But yeah, if you feel like you...
This makes a lot of sense now. This makes it... So he was the... I know he worked on Anthem, but he was the executive producer for Anthem. This makes a lot of sense. You made a shit game, and everyone else in that fucking credits is also to blame. It's not just you, bro. Like, yes, obviously you are a big part. You were the executive fucking producer of this absolute shit stain of a game. But you know what? Everyone else is just as responsible. It's a group project. It's a collaborative effort.
Need to yell at somebody.
Games is. That's what I haven't even started my studies yet, but I still know that it's a collaborative effort. It's not just one person's fault. No, of course not. But if someone comes out and attacks me on Twitter for, you know, like a dev comes out and says like, oh, these gamers, they're such like pieces of shit. They're such shills. They're such cuckboys and stuff like that. Of course, people are gonna go attack that person. But I mean, if no one else says anything, we're just gonna go, oh, everyone who worked on this.
For the way that Anthem is, it's much better to be yelling at someone like me, who was theoretically in charge of the project, or at least in charge of the project for some of the development time, than yelling at someone who was working on the combat or the level design or whatever. Because again,
the combat shit, level design is shit. They have to take accountability for that too. Like, yes, you're the executive producer, but they still made it as well.
You don't know exactly what their reality was. When I was an executive producer, I got paid pretty well. And to some degree, from my perspective, some of that compensation was to act as a lightning rod for this negative discourse. It's one of the reasons why I think it is an executive producer's responsibility to have a social media presence. Because some of you, if you're still watching, will play a game and be angry about it and need to yell at a human being. And I think one of the executive producer's responsibilities is to protect his team. And part of protecting his team is providing that lightning rod. If you don't provide that lightning rod, then people who need to vent are going to find places to vent. We live in a social media world. Many people have some form of social media presence. If you, as the most senior person on the project, don't have a social media presence, then people are going to go and find someone else. Someone who isn't paid as well as you. Someone who doesn't necessarily have the tools to protect themselves from the toxicity that is leveled at them. I would say again that you shouldn't be targeting people directly, even the executive producer. But you know what? If you feel the need, the higher up in the organization you go, the more I'm going to say have at her. As you
Once again, it's always attack the person at the top. Go for them, not me. They don't want to take accountability. They're always trying to shovel it off to the next person. No one ever wants to take accountability when it comes to the gaming industry. You know, there could be one section of a game that's like, this bit is shit, right? And this was left down to one programmer. Say like there's a bug in a game that's really annoying, and it was a responsibility of this one we can't blame him. No, we're gonna blame his manager, then blame his manager, then blame his manager, So we're blaming the CEO for the fact that there's this bug in the game that's ruining it.
Get beyond the executive producer and you get up into studio leadership and group leadership and the C-suite and the person in charge of the entire corporation. They share responsibility in the game you don't like being the way that it is. So if you feel the need to yell at them, again, probably don't, but they're big boys and girls, so they should be able to handle it.
So are the devs. They should be adults, but the way a lot of them act these days, they aren't.
Now, the reality is, most of those people do not have a social media presence, do not have a way that you can yell at them directly. So a lot of times...
And they're fucking smart. They're smart. These devs who come out and talk shit online to gamers, they're the dumb ones. They're the ones that come and get the response. That's why people attack them, because they have a social media presence. That's why. See, you literally just contradict yourself right there. Oh, they don't get attacked and they don't take it, they don't hear it because they don't have a social media presence. Smart. Very smart. If you don't want criticism, don't hand it out. Me, I'm fine with taking criticism. I'm fine with people shit talking me, right? Because I have a social media presence and I'm a very opinionated person, right? So when people talk shit back to me, I'm like, I gotta take it. If people disagree with me, I'm like, yep, that's just how it has to be. I'm willing to put myself out there. I have to be willing to take it. So these game devs who are putting themselves out there on the internet, talking shit about gamers, they have to be able to take it, and then they can't take it. Then they're like, no, blame my manager for the way the game is.
What I'm telling you is the least senior person you're allowed to yell at is the executive producer. And a lot of times the most senior person you're going to be able to yell at is the executive producer. So once again, the executive producer serves as a lightning rod for all this vitriol. If you feel like you're not being listened to when you complain on
you are.
Metacritic, or
that's
you
one thing I know is that people do listen.
The forums of a studio, or you complain into the social media channels of the publisher or the studio, be aware that this stuff is carefully scrutinized, not just by the social media teams, also by the teams themselves. Arguably, in a lot of cases, to too great of a degree. The team is listening, I would say, often too much to what you are yelling about and complaining about in these channels.
And they should. If your game is bad, right, you made a shit game, that dev team should be listening to that. They should be. The dev team who made certain games recently, and the game turned out to be shit, they should be listening. All the criticism that's been coming out about Avowed recently, with the player base being so low, and people voicing their opinions on the game, that dev team should be listening. Why their game didn't perform well. All right? They should be.
But
you should listen to
don't
every
worry,
little criticism.
You don't need to go onto their Twitter channel and yell at them directly, because they're going to hear it anyway.
Yeah, but how do we know about their Twitter channel? Because they voice their opinions first.
Be a human being, have some empathy, and stop being cruel. Stop throwing a party because a bunch of people lost their jobs. Because you don't know the circumstances that resulted in the thing that you're mad at.
But why should people care? Why should we care? Why should we care of, they lost their jobs because, you know, the game that they worked on was really shit. Boo fucking who? They don't care. Consumers don't care. They don't give a shit. All they care about is the game good? And if this studio is pumping out nothing but shit games, of course they're going to want to see layoffs. And when layoffs come, because they have pushback against the shit that gaming studios releasing, of course they're going to be happy over that. Fucking oath, why would they not be?
People deserve some grace. People deserve some empathy from you. And if you can't provide
And these developers should show empathy and listen to gamers.
that, then stay off the internet completely.
Oh, but this game isn't for gamers. Now who the fuck is it for?
One last time for the cheap seats. You are entitled to your opinion. You are entitled to be angry about a game that you bought. You paid good money for it. But try to remember that it's just a game. Even more importantly,
But it's my $70.
you are expressing your complaints, stay away from cruelty. Stay away from targeting individual people. Stay away from
these individual people should not target their player base then.
Trying to
Because
cause
that's where it comes from. They target their player
harm.
base.
Stay away from celebrating harm done to actual human beings. Express your opinion to the company that made your game. Tell them what you like. Tell them what you don't like.
Trust
Be
me.
specific.
A lot of
It will
fucking
help
gamers
you
do.
get games that are more like what you want.
So this developer right here.
Games industry.
So this is a perfect dark level designer hates you, calls gamers a mistake. Why are you the way you are? This is Michael Scott's quote. So this guy right here. So right here, where he says, Laura Bailey on the death threats she received for her role as Abby brought me to tears. Obviously terrible. Calling gamers were a mistake. The fact that it's 2021 and gamers still get mad over a character being black boggles my mind. It's time to grow up, you racist pigs. So you're just calling every single gamer a racist pig? I mean, I don't really care what race she is, but you're grouping me with this, saying that, you know, gamers were a mistake. If adding female protagonists to video games is all it takes to make the worst people you've ever met not want to play them, we should add female protagonists to every game. Seeing a lot of comments turned off for a Pride Month post. I wish all bigots to kindly F off and learn to love others for who they are. Gaming is for everyone. Everyone except the bigots. It's just like, the people who used to say this stuff about like, oh, how dare you add a black person in the game? How dare there be a female protagonist? That was a minority. It really was only like this amount of people that would say it. But they kept on acknowledging it, and they kept grouping every single gamer with shit like this. And then all of a sudden they say like, all gamers were a mistake. Gamers are bigots. Gamers are racist. Gamers are this. Gamers are that. And it's these game devs that say shit like this that eventually the people who would play games are just like, bro, shut the fuck up. And then it's really funny because then these game devs will come out, release a game, and the game will do shit. It's like, like, the fuck? Like, calling me a mistake. I'm not a fucking mistake. What the fuck do you mean? Game devs admit they hate gamers.
Babylon B.
Look at this. Am I allowed to say this? I kind of hate gamers. I'm a professional game designer, and I'm worried that I'm starting to hate gamers. Then why the fuck are you a game designer then? Like, that's why gamers get pissed off. That's why then they make these personal attacks. Because when you have game devs constantly coming out talking about how much they hate how much they hate gamers themselves, well, of course then they're gonna fucking, you know, celebrate when these people get laid off. What do you expect? Like, what the fuck do you expect, man? This guy, this person, he's just, he's an idiot. He really is. I think the points that he made, a lot of them are just like, just empty. And a lot of them are stupid.